Good morning. Hey, I am Conservative Cat, and we have got a packed show for you today. Thanks so much for tuning in. I know you've got options, and I'm so grateful that you choose this show, the show where we sink our claws into the truth. We are going to talk about the Democrat lawmakers urging the military, and I saw this coming. We covered it extensively a couple days ago, where you had PBS. There was like a PBS story or some sort of story out there about military members retiring, resigning, admirals resigning out of this operation, this Donald Trump operation, where he's blowing up cartel ships, blowing up these narco terrorists. I mean, they're bringing in narcotics, fentanyl, and he's got this operation. It's been underway since really September. And Democrats are saying that it's unconstitutional, or that these are illegal orders that Trump is issuing to blow these things up, blow these ships up from Venezuela. Donald Trump recognized TDA, Tren de Agragua, which is a Venezuelan gang. He recognized them as a foreign terrorist group. He invoked 1798, the Alien Enemies Act, and designated them officially as a foreign terrorist group. And we've been blowing them up at sea. They're drug ships. They have drugs coming into the country. And Dems say that somehow that operation is illegal, and they're urging the military and intelligence to personally defy the president, okay, and defy his authority as commander-in-chief. And this is a not-so-subtle video that I'll be sharing with you. Democrats put it out there, Democrat lawmakers. I also want to get to House Democrat Chuy Garcia, because this is fascinating stuff. I love when the left eats their own. So, gotcha, Chuy. We gotcha. A document has surfaced now, and he tried to make this argument, and really the document kind of just shows that his argument is not true or not valid, really, about why he announced his retirement, and he's not running really for re-election. He submitted all of his paperwork, but the documents are fascinating, and we're going to get into that. And then I don't want to give it all away. I'm going to wait a little while until we get into that story. And Sean Duffy, he is condemning this court ruling. He condemns the court's ruling here surrounding illegal immigration CDLs, and he vows that he's not going to take this lying down, and he's going to continue to fight for the safety of the American people on the road. So we're going to get to the transportation secretary in this court ruling that happened over a federal safety rule, an emergency federal safety rule that was issued by the Department of Transportation, and they struck it down the court. And the reasoning was interesting, the court's reasoning. So smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, share this out with your friends, tell one person about Conservative Cat today. That is my task for you. So before we get into this Democrat lawmakers video, several lawmakers, they were all military at one point, were intelligence, a part of the intelligence communities. These Democrat lawmakers, they put out a video urging the military to defy orders from their commander-in-chief. Treasonous. But before we get into that, in order to properly tell you that story, I have to give you some history. So I want to tell you about the story of Don't Give Up the Ship. Okay, and it doesn't begin on the deck of a dying warship. Okay, this dying warship, it was a warship, and it all started when America was still young. Okay, still untested, and still fighting to prove itself, still fighting to prove that it could stand toe-to-toe with the greatest empire on earth. This is the War of 1812. Okay, the year was 1812 in the United States, and we found ourselves in a second conflict with the Brits. The British Navy was seizing American sailors. They were choking off American trade. They were treating the New Republic like a rebellious child rather than a sovereign nation. They weren't taking us seriously. Okay. And finally, we had enough. Congress declared war, and this is the War of 1812. And we were determined to defend America's honor and fight for our independence in a world that didn't think that the United States would survive infancy. Okay, so the War of 1812, very fascinating history. We're not going to dig into all of it. I just want to tell you about this small little story within the War of 1812. It was like one tiny little battle. And by tiny, not so tiny. Okay, so it was messy. It was a really uneven war. We really were infants in this war. But we were wanting to prove ourselves. So America's army was very small. We had a very small navy, nothing to compared to what it is today. But our spirit was so enormous. I would argue our spirit back then was bigger than it is now. The American spirit, especially if we've got military personnel at this point saying, I'm going to defy orders from my commander-in-chief. Like, what kind of spirit is that? What kind of American independence? You're not defending her honor. You're not defending her independence. Anyway, so an enormous American spirit at this time. We had a small navy, but an enormous American spirit. The kind of spirit that came from people who had fought in the Revolution and weren't about to bow down to the Brits, bow down to the crown again. So out of that turbulent backdrop, steps in a man named Captain James Lawrence. He was the commander of the USS Chesapeake. Okay, so this is a warship, really cool ship. Okay, on day in June 1813, the British warship HMS Shannon challenged the Chesapeake, okay, our warship, to a battle just outside Boston Harbor. Lawrence, Captain James Lawrence, accepted the battle, not because he had the advantage, but because Americans never ran away from a fight at this time, and they never ran away from a fight when the nation's honor was on the line. So there was cannon fire. It tore through the air, and it ripped through the Chesapeake, and men fell all around him. This James Lawrence, Captain James Lawrence, and Lawrence himself was struck by, they call it canister shot, which is like a huge wound, like big old bullet, and he was struck, fatally shot. But before he died, he said something, okay? His officers carried him to the deck, and the blood was just soaking the boards of this ship, okay? And despite this defeat, because they did ultimately get defeated in this battle, there was a cry of defiance, okay? Here's what Captain James Lawrence said. He said, "Don't give up the ship. Fight her till she sinks." Okay, so that's what he said. Those words were not enough to save the Chesapeake, but they were enough to stir the soul of the American sailors. So one man in particular was really stirred up by these words. His name was Oliver Hazard Perry. Okay, and he felt, a personal charge from the fallen brother, James Lawrence. He felt like, those words really cut deep for him. So Perry began preparing to challenge the British on the Great Lakes. This is a region that the British at the time had believed was theirs and believed they controlled it. But Perry believed something stronger than British firepower. Okay, he believed in the American resolve. To honor Lawrence, his brother, he commissioned a great blue battle flag, and he stitched in some words. And what he stitched in to this flag were the words, "Don't give up the ship." Okay, so Perry raised that flag on the USS Lawrence. They named the warship on the Great Lakes, the USS Lawrence. And this was during the Battle of Lake Erie. And it wasn't just a cloth on a mast, okay, the flag. It wasn't just a cloth on a flagpole. It was a declaration of who Americans were. The battle that followed was very chaotic and bloody. Perry's flagship was scattered. His men were wounded, dead. But instead of surrendering, he grabbed that giant flag, climbed into a small boat, rowed under enemy, rowed the boat. Okay, got into a small boat, rowed into enemy fire to another ship. The U.S. Niagara is what it was called. So he rowed to a separate warship with Lawrence dying words whipping above the wind above him. He just kept hearing those words, right? Perry charged back into the fight and achieved a victory, one of the most important American victories in that entire War of the 1812. Okay, so it's very important that I provide you this history because this is the moment that transformed Captain Lawrence's final order into a living creed. Okay, it became a signature of American grit. Okay, the belief that you don't lay down, you don't fold, you don't surrender your ship, whether the ship is a vessel in the Great Lakes, a nation struggling to survive, values. You don't give up that American grit. You don't give up your ship or surrender your ship. Okay. Our values that define us today, we shouldn't give that up. And this is a huge moment in history, and it's deeply offensive that the Democrats used this in their video, and I'm going to get to it here in just a second. To wrap up the history context, Perry's flag still hangs in Memorial Hall at the U.S. Naval Academy. And it is a very silent, powerful reminder that the backbone of this country has always been courage, sacrifice, and refusal to give up when the world expects you to. Okay, so this is why don't give up the ship, is so powerful, and they're really revisionist history, the Democrats who are using it. It was born out of a young America who was fighting. She was fighting to defend her freedom. We were fighting to defend her freedom, and this was a moment where men were shedding blood, sacrificing, and, we can't forget who these people are and what they did. And this has to be preserved. And that's why we preserved it. I think it's a replica Perry's flag that still hangs in Memorial Hall today. I'm pretty sure it's a replica. But, we can't forget, hey, when enemies attack us, we can't forget who we are. And, we are a faithful, freedom-loving people, and we shouldn't forget that. So this is really fascinating what the Democrats have done in this video, and I'm going to get to it here. Fast forward to today. Don't Give Up the Ship was made famous, we know by now. Now we know by Captain James Lawrence. He was mortally wounded in battle between his USS Chesapeake and the British warship, the HMS Shannon. And this was on the coast of Boston during the 1812 war. Okay. Unfortunately for the captain, his phrase became legendary within the Navy, but his ship was in fact captured by the Brits, and he did not have a victory. But later, I told you about the guy on the Great Lakes, Perry, who kind of lived up to this "Don't give up the ship" slogan. Okay, so the Democrat lawmakers, a group of Democrat lawmakers now, are reviving sort of this advice, the "Don't give up the ship" advice, and they posted a 1.5-minute video. What they are doing in this video is urging our military troops and our intelligence agencies and officials to defy orders from above, from President Donald Trump, if they think that it's illegal. Now, yesterday I went into great detail about, hey, there's a very high risk, low payoff to defying a superior's orders. Even if you think that it might be illegal, if it kind of is, passes the sniff test and you think that it could be legal, or it's any reasonable person believes that it could be legal, you're not going to get in trouble, okay, as a military member by defying or by complying with an illegal order. Okay, you're going to probably have a pretty solid defense, unless it's blatantly illegal, where you're instructed to commit a crime. Okay. So anyway, legal order, like, you don't want to get caught up in trying to figure out as a military member whether the order is legal or not. These orders that Trump are issuing, and really it surrounds, like I said, the Venezuelan ships, the drug ships. They're carrying fentanyl into the United States through the 1798 Aliens Act. He's designated these Venezuelans as terrorists, narco-terror. They're bringing narcotics into the country and they're blowing them up, these ships. Okay, so one of the most recent actions that they took, the Navy, they blew up a ship and it resulted in over 10 Venezuelan gang members, TDA, Tren de Agua, which is the name of the Venezuelan gang. Over 10 of them died. So there was a recent action taken by our military that caused a lot of these gang members to die at sea because we blew up their ship. Okay, so Donald Trump is not mentioned by name in this video, but it's clear that they're referring to the folks in power. And right now, we all know who that is. This clip was posted to social media by Senator Elise Slotkin, and it features Mark Kelly, Chris DeLuzio, Chrissy Houlihan, Maggie Goodlander, Jason Crow. All of these members, Democrat members, they were either former military members or former intelligence community members. Okay, so let's take a listen to the clip here. Here we go.
I'm Senator Alyssa Slotkin.
Senator Mark Kelly.
Representative Chris DeLuzio.
Congresswoman Maggie Goodlander.
Representative Chrissy Houlihan.
Congressman Jason Crow. I was a captain in the United States Navy.
Former CIA officer.
Former Navy.
Former paratrooper and Army Ranger.
Former intelligence officer.
Former Air Force.
We want to speak directly to members of the military
and the intelligence community
who take risks each day
to keep Americans safe.
We know you are under enormous stress and pressure right now.
Americans trust their military,
but that trust is at risk.
This administration is pitting our uniformed military
and intelligence community professionals
against American citizens.
Like us. You all swore an oath
to protect and defend this Constitution.
Right now, the threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad,
but from right here at home.
Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
No one has to carry out orders that violate the law
or our Constitution.
We know this is hard,
and that it's a difficult time to be a public servant.
But whether you're serving in the CIA,
the Army,
or Navy,
the Air Force,
your vigilance is critical.
And know that we have your back.
Because now, more than ever,
the American people need you.
We need you to stand up for our laws,
our Constitution,
and who we are as Americans. Don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't give up the ship.
Well, that was gay. Sorry, guys. Yeah, that was their message. And, it was not very subtle. It had probably all the subtlety of a meat cleaver slamming down on a cutting board. Okay. That was not very subtle. So in her Axe post, Alyssa Slotkin, said that the group wanted to speak directly to service members, claiming that the American people need you to stand up for our laws and our Constitution. Kelly, a former Navy pilot, accused the Trump administration of pitting our uniformed military and intelligence community professionals against the American citizens. And, of course, echoing similar claims there, Crow, Deluzio. At several points in the video, Kelly, Slotkin, Deluzio, they repeated this line: "You can refuse illegal orders. You must refuse illegal orders." Okay. So Goodlander joined Kelly in the video in reminding viewers that, like us, you swore an oath. The military members, and they're speaking directly to military members now. Like us, you swore an oath to protect and defend the Constitution. No, they didn't blatantly tell military members to rise up in an insurrection or betray our country. They didn't, urge that outright. However, these Democrat leaders are using violent language, and they always have used violent language in this new Trump era, and really ever since Trump in 2016 started running in 2015. They've used violent language, actually even before that, because they were calling Ronald Reagan Hitler. Okay. And with the assassination of Charlie Kirk, Turning Point USA founder, it certainly doesn't seem like they are lowering the temperature of this divisive rhetoric. And, many of them claim that they stand for lowering the temperature and that we should, unify. This is not unifying. This is very insurrection-y. No, I guess they didn't urge outright an insurrection, but it definitely gives that vibe. Hey, betray your country. Betray the commander-in-chief who provides legal orders, by the way. But even if they were illegal orders, you're going to have a defense. And I don't see how blowing up ships carrying massive amounts of fentanyl coming into the United States from Venezuelan gang members is an illegal order. Okay, I don't see how that's an order that is blatantly illegal. Certainly passes the sniff test. Any reasonable person, if it's coming from the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, or President Donald Trump, any reasonable military member is going to look at this and be like, yeah, I think that's a legal order. I wouldn't even question the legality. And here's the thing. Most military members are not seeking counsel. People who are directly involved in this operation to shut down these Venezuelan gangs, the TDA, bringing in fentanyl into this country. Most military members are not taking issue with these orders. If they are, they're indirectly involved in these operations. And they're seeking legal advice from nonprofit organizations. And yesterday I talked about this nonprofit organization where they provide legal advice over legal orders versus illegal orders and what, military members should do. And in their own little handbook, okay, that they provide, a guidebook, the military members, there is a very high risk, low payoff to defying an order, period. There's jail time. If it's a legal order and you defy it, you could go to jail for the rest of your life. Or if we're in a time of war and you're a military member and you defy a legal order, you could be put to death. Okay. So not stuff you want to play around with. Encouraging people to defy orders from the commander-in-chief. They are not illegal orders. They haven't been deemed illegal orders by any kind of court or anything like that. Democrats actually recorded this. They reviewed this video and they said, yeah, this is going to be good to post. Like, this is wild. Could you imagine the outcry from the left if Donald Trump had tried something like this? This is insurrection. You're encouraging our military to commit an act of treason. You're going to get them killed. Okay, this is absolute insanity. The group continued, implying that the United States is under siege from a dark source within its own borders. Yeah, that's definitely turning down the temperature and not fueling this divisive rhetoric. Look, it doesn't take Einstein to figure out what dark force they're referring to. They were very careful in this video not to mention President Donald Trump by name. But it's very clear who they're referring to, this dark force from within. It's President Donald Trump. These lawmakers are asking troops to make these judgments about whether these really, well, they're not even asking them to make judgments about the orders. They're saying to outright defy these illegal orders, and they've already painted these orders as illegal, and they haven't been deemed illegal. He's not asking them to commit war crimes. Okay, we have an enemy through the Alien Enemies Act, foreign terrorist organization, designated a foreign terrorist organization, TDA, coming in on these drug ships, okay, carrying fentanyl into our country. And it's just so sick how they compare this to don't give up the ship. Like, could you, the Brits, right? And they didn't take us seriously, and they were trying to choke us out in trade, and they didn't take young America seriously. And what we had to do was fight the War of 1812, and men died. James Lawrence died, Captain James Lawrence, and there's such revisionists, history revisionists. It really pisses me off. I'm like getting angry and upset here because it's like, whoa, back up a second. James Lawrence, Perry, these guys bled, they fought for America, and we have a foreign enemy who is not taking us very seriously when we say, hey, don't bring drugs into this country, drugs that are killing my friends, family members, your friends, family members. Don't do it. But they ignore it, right? TDA. And they do it anyway. And Donald Trump said, no, Nicolas Maduro, I don't care about what you have to say. I'm going to blow these ships up, these drug boats, if they're going to come in here and drop off fentanyl and kill our people. Okay, so it's very reminiscent almost of the War of 1812. You have foreign countries, terrorists, gang members who are not only drug trafficking, but they're sex trafficking. They're committing weapons trafficking, committing all kinds of crimes, coming to this country, and they're not taking this country seriously. And that was the whole point of the War of 1812. And don't give up the ship. Don't give up. The spirit of America. Don't give it up. Make them take you seriously. Okay. And that's what Donald Trump is doing through this operation. And I love how the lawmakers here said that, hey, we're asking you to defy these illegal orders. So they've already painted them as illegal orders. They have no standing to say that they're illegal orders. And they're asking these troops to kind of make these judgments during what they call a hard moment for public servants. So they're going to get these people killed, military members, if you defy these orders, and most likely they're going to be deemed legal orders. I don't foresee them being deemed illegal orders. It is punishable by death. We're not at war with the country of Venezuela right now, but lifetime in prison, okay, is what you're looking at. And if we were to enter into some sort of war, which I don't think is going to happen, Maduro is really just all bark and no bite. I think if we were to enter into some kind of war with these terrorist organizations and with this country, who doesn't seem to be getting a hint that, hey, we don't want your fentanyl shipped into our country, your Chinese fentanyl. If they don't get the hint, then yeah, we go into wartime. Then they're defying orders, these military members, and then they're killed for treason. Okay, so here's what they said in the video. Whether you serve in the CIA, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, your vigilance is crucial. The American people need you to stand up for our laws and our Constitution. They closed the video with this "Don't give up the ship" slogan. And they took that from history, 1812. They honestly probably don't know their history because if they did, they wouldn't have really quoted that, because Donald Trump is literally quite doing the exact same thing that we did in 1812, which is blowing up ships of enemies who don't take us seriously. At the time, it was the Brits in the 1812. Now it's Venezuela. So, they have plausible deniability in this video. They don't outright say commit an act of insurrection or treason. Nowhere did they condone, illegal behavior, which would be defying a legal order. Or I don't think that in this video, they outwardly urged violent action or an insurrection, but their message is still clear, even though it wasn't blatant. They want chaos and they want uncertainty, and they want military members to be making these judgments and possibly ruining the rest of their lives in prison, sitting the rest of their lives in prison for defying a legal order. This is pretty sick. This is a sick message. All right. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends, subscribe to the channel. I so do appreciate you tuning in. Good morning, Cat and Chat. I appreciate you being here. I think the Insurrection Act had more to do with threat from the English infiltrating America, like the enemy commie Dems do now. Yeah, so there's a lot of parallels here to the War of 1812 and Venezuela and what's going on in our seas today, where we have our Navy blowing up ships, Air Force issuing strikes against these drug boats. It's very similar in that, hey, we have an enemy. That's Venezuela right now. Back in 1812, our enemy was the British, because the British sought to continue to control young America, and they thought for sure that we weren't going to be a serious country after the American Revolution. And that's really what kind of brought about the War of 1812. Venezuela doesn't think we're a serious country when we say things like, hey, don't bring bring Chinese fentanyl into the country. They haven't taken us seriously because they're still doing it. So we've had to go a step further and issue strikes against these drug boats. And most recently, there was a strike that turned deadly and killed TDA members, Tren de Agua. And these are very nasty gang members, okay? Raping children, okay? For fun. That is what these gang members do. And to take out those types of people, in a strike, a lawful order, because, hey, we've deemed them enemies of the country through the 1798 Enemies Act. Okay. The president has full authority to issue these strikes. Okay. We're not at war, but we have full authority to issue these strikes if they enter, if we have intelligence that there's drugs on these boats, if we have them coming into the country and making their way to the United States on these little drug boats, then yes, we have not only he's not only legally capable of doing these strikes, Donald Trump, but he's also obligated, in my belief, to do these strikes to protect Americans on American soil. All right, let's switch gears. Let's talk about Jesus Chuy Garcia. He's an Illinois Democrat congressman. He's representing the 4th District, and he announced his retirement recently. And this has kind of caused the party to crumble. Okay. And I've been following this story closely. His retirement announcement has caused the party to further crumble and eat itself from within. They're destroying themselves within the Illinois or the Democrat Party. So I think it's also really funny that they say we're true defenders of democracy, and they repeat that mantra like we're defenders of democracy, democracy, democracy. This is the most anti-democratic thing I've ever seen come from a candidate ever. This is Jesus Chuy Garcia. And this narrative that we are defenders of democracy is crumbling just as much as their party is from within inside itself. So Garcia, he's been a member of Congress here in Illinois since 2019. He filed to run for re-election in October of this year, on October 27th. That's when he submitted his petitions. Now, since he's the incumbent, he's very well liked. He's in a gerrymandered district, okay, much like most of the districts here in the state of Illinois, the congressional districts and the state house districts, but it's gerrymandered, and he is in a safe blue state or blue district, and he is definitely well liked by his fellow Democrats, and nobody decided to run in the race against him or primary him in this district. And nobody is running on the other side of the aisle either, okay, which is typical for a gerrymandered district like this. From what I understand, I don't think anybody is running in this district outside of Chuy Garcia because it's Democrat controlled and gerrymandered, and I don't think that there's a Republican in it, but I'll double check that. But he announced he's retiring. Okay. He filed his petitions October 27th, went for re-election. But now we have Patty Garcia, no relation to him. Okay. Chuy Garcia, Patty Garcia. I know it gets confusing. Their names are the same. Last names are the same. They're not related, but he is his chief of staff, or Patty Garcia. Okay. So Patty filed just minutes before the November deadline. So let me actually I wanted to make sure something. Okay. Just double checking. Okay, so who filed on November 3rd? This was just, a few minutes before the deadline expired to file your petitions. Patty Garcia, who is the chief of staff to Chuy Garcia. Okay, shortly afterward, excuse me. Sorry about that. Okay, shortly afterward, you have Representative Chuy Garcia, announcing that he's changed his mind on running for re-election. And then he cited health and family concerns, okay, as to the reason why he's stepping out of the race, okay. So in an interview he gave, explaining his decision the next day after announcing his retirement, he shared that it was on the same day he had filed to run that he got bad news about his health, okay. So on the night of the vote to reopen the government, which was last Wednesday, Democrat Representative Marie Gluesenkamp Perez, now she's from Wisconsin, put forth a privilege resolution calling on the House to condemn Representative Garcia for essentially rigging the system, angering her fellow Democrats at a moment when they are trying to appear unified. Okay, so this privilege resolution is really just like a tisk tisk, like how dare you kind of thing. Okay. But you see the problem here. So nobody like primaried Patty or Chuy Garcia, and Patty launched his bid to replace him, Chuy Garcia. Patty Garcia, chief of staff. She launched her campaign in Cicero Illinois. And it's almost like it was planned where there wouldn't be a primary challenger. Okay. You get what I'm saying? Like and his Democrat colleagues say that's not me. He's rigging the system to ensure that his friend or an accomplice, Patty Garcia, that she is elected. So on Monday, a vote to table the resolution failed. And yesterday, the House voted in favor of the disapproval resolution. Now, of course, 23 Democrats voted in favor with all Republicans. So it was 236 to 184, and then 4, I don't think voted present. Okay, so all the Republicans voted to disapprove of Chuy Garcia, but there were 23 Democrats who voted to disapprove Chuy Garcia, voted up for this disapproval resolution. So this was a very humiliating moment for Chuy Garcia, but it was also a humiliating moment for Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader, because he told his caucus to vote against this because they want to appear unified, the Democrats, but they're not. Okay. So Representative Garcia's fate was sealed because of these 23 Democrats, and they did not vote against it. But here's where it gets interesting. There was a document that was released. Okay, so they voted on this resolution. They condemned what Chuy Garcia did. But more so, this is what's really damning. This document came out, and this was reported on ahead of the vote, which probably led to the 23 Democrats, or helped the 23 Democrats in voting for this disapproval resolution. So there was a document that was reported on ahead of the vote, and Chuy Garcia signed his chief of staff, Patty Garcia, not related, her nominating papers, her nominating petitions, 2 days before she filed. Now, she filed right at that deadline, almost missed a hit, okay? So she filed, and he signed her nominating papers, okay? Her nominating petition 2 days before she had filed. And that was 3 days before he officially announced he was dropping out. So he announced, 3 days before November 3rd. And then she started collecting petitions, a couple of days before November 3rd, and then got her petitions in, I would imagine a couple of days before got her petitions in. Like, this happened very quick. And his signature was the very first one on her petitions. Okay, so you see what went down here. Are you catching my drift? The Chuy Garcia guy, he denied clearing the path for his chief of staff to take his seat without facing a primary. And you see why the Democrats would be peeved off, because they could have had, somebody primary. Patty Garcia, maybe they didn't want Patty Garcia for whatever reason, or they thought that there'd be a stronger candidate there. But the document filed with the Illinois elections officials shows that he was the first to sign her nominating papers days before he announced his retirement. So he knew that she was running before he announced his retirement. The form is dated November 1st, 2 days before the filing date, and 3 days before Chuy Garcia formally announced his retirement. Patty Garcia ultimately filed 3,000 signatures to qualify for the Democrat primary ballot. The two are not related, Chuy Garcia and Patty. Okay, so that's where we're at with that. And, hilariously, his fellow House Democrats voted against him in this resolution and said that, hey, we don't approve of this because it's rigging the system. But you did have some Democrats who came out and supported Chuy Garcia and didn't vote for this disapproval resolution. And they cited a reason why. There was one guy who said that he wasn't going to question Chuy Garcia because he has progressive credentials. So here's a quote from Representative Ardino Esteplat. who is a Democrat from New York. He says Chuy Garcia is a legend and an icon in his community. His progressive record is unmatched here. I will not question his progressive credentials. You know, he faced a situation, a personal situation. He acted within the framework of the law. Okay, so here's this member of Congress acting within the framework of the law. And really what he did, he installed a hand-picked successor by ensuring she'd have no opponents, by doing this very late in the game. And because he has progressive credentials, it's all okay. And apparently, okay. And, you know, this is Illinois we're talking about. So, you know, this is pretty par for the course. It all kind of makes sense. This kind of stuff happens all the time in Illinois. But I just think it's hilarious that you have Democrats saying, oh, we're defenders of democracy, defenders of democracy. Here's this guy handpicking his successor, making sure she doesn't have a primary opponent, making sure she files her petitions right on time at the deadline. He doesn't announce his retirement right away. He said on October 27th, the same day that he filed, he got this news about his health. And I know it takes some time to decide, you know, what you're going to do. But I mean, you know, he knew that she was running. He knew who was going to take his place, and he didn't let the Democrat Party choose the primary challenger or run somebody in that district. He got to handpick his successor, essentially. And that's according to the documents, you know, the nominating papers. He signed her nominating papers. He was the first one to sign her nominating papers. And yeah, not exactly what I would call defender of democracy, Chuy Garcia. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends, subscribe to the channel. We are going to be right back. And we are going to be talking about the Epstein files, that whole saga, because that has kind of dominated much of the news for the last few months, actually. And on Tuesday, the House of Representatives and the Senate held a key vote to release the Epstein files, some of these files, some more of these files. The vote was not close. It was within, like, there was only one no vote, Clay Higgins, which I'm going to get to in just a second why he voted no. I'll be right back. Smash that like button. Welcome back to Conservative Cat Clips, where we cut through the spin, we call out the nonsense, and we do it all with an unapologetic American flair. I'm your host, Kat, and today we're exposing the truth behind nonprofit organizations and how they helped fuel the border crisis. Let's be real, Joe Biden, he took an exit, but he left a border-sized crater in our national security, and really the biggest, sneakiest players weren't the politicians or the cartels, really. Those nonprofit organizations, yep, the tax-free do-gooders, they ran logistics for a mass illegal immigration operation. Take Catholic Charities, for instance. Catholic Charities USA, they pocketed $1.4 billion in 2022 alone. More than 60% of that came from government grants, your tax dollars. Then they turned around, used those tax dollars for bus rides, hotel rooms, and legal defense for people who blatantly broke our federal immigration laws. HIAS, they got millions in grants, and then they resettled people deep into the United States. They didn't do any kind of vetting, no transparency, and they had zero regard for the towns impacted by this overrun, like Springfield, Ohio. And just because the administration changed doesn't mean that the nonprofit conveyor belt has stopped. These groups have built a machine, and they built a machine under Joe Biden, and they're still using it to move tens of thousands of people, often under the radar. According to congressional watchdogs, just 4 major national profits helped transport and shelter over 35,000 illegal migrants in a single month. Just 4 helped transport and shelter 35,000 illegal immigrants in a single month. This is insane. That's not charity. That's infrastructure for illegal immigrants, and you helped pay for it. They housed them. They gave them hotel rooms. They gave them legal representation. And you helped pay for it, and you didn't even know it. Whether you knew it or not, they didn't care. Even now, as the new administration tries to restore law and order, these nonprofit organizations, they're lawyering up, they're pushing lawsuits, and they're working overtime to try to stall these deportations and keep the broken pipeline flowing. They want that pipeline to keep flowing, where they take tens of thousands of people and then they give them jobs. And they put them in jobs where they're ultimately going to be used as slave labor, because these companies are going to hang their illegal status over their heads. It's time to cut the cash, investigate the players, pull the nonprofit masks off, and we need to close up the border. We need to pull the nonprofit mask off the open borders agenda. Because if a group is using government money to move, house, and protect people in violation of federal law, that's not compassion, it's collusion. And I'll call it that. This has been Conservative Cat Clips. I'm Kat, reminding you that the border crisis wasn't built by weak presidents. It really wasn't built by Joe Biden. It was powered by rich nonprofits hiding behind halos and hashtags. And our laws were trampled all over, and our communities were overwhelmed. Let's clean it up, and let's do it for real this time and defang these nonprofits. Smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. You're listening to the Conservative Cat Show. Appreciate you being here. Go ahead, visit patriotpumpenergy.com. Get your bottle of premium pre-workout today. Use the promo code Conservative Cat at checkout. 150 milligrams of caffeine. This is clean pre-workout, no artificial colors or dyes. All right, let's talk about the vote. This has really dominated the news cycle for the past few months. I talked a lot about the Epstein files yesterday. But this key vote to finally release them happened in the House and the Senate. Okay, so the House yesterday voted overwhelmingly to pass this, directing the Department of Justice to release the files related to the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, a move that comes months after intense opposition from President Donald Trump and GOP leaders. He has said that this is a hoax and that it's not worth anybody's time and yada, yada, yada. Donald Trump has up to this point. Okay, now the vote was very lopsided, 427-1. Clay Higgins was the only one casting the sole lone vote, no vote. So, this tally is kind of interesting because it's kind of looked like there was going to be a bigger fight, but this is sort of kind of unanimous. It was just one sole vote, Clay Higgins, and I'll get to why he voted no in just a second, but it's kind of contradictive, this vote, to what has been going on. There has been fierce fighting from both sides, both between parties within the GOP, that preceded it, like, they were fighting, Donald Trump, loyalists were saying, like, yeah, we shouldn't release it. You wouldn't have thought that this would have gone this way. I'm just saying, like, the 427-1, I didn't think it would go that lopsided. But Trump, he actually recently changed his tune on this, and he started to change his mind and advocate for full disclosure of the Epstein files. I think that he did that when it became evident that the Republicans were going to vote for it. Now, the Democrats have been pushing for the release of the files because Trump is a pedophile and he's, connected to the Epstein files, which is just ridiculous. So far, all of the Trump is a pedophile information has not really checked out. We talked about this where they released documents. There was a document dump of about 20,000 documents, and they had redacted Virginia Giuffre's name. Although this document has been released before, and they did that purposefully, redacted her name to try to implicate President Donald Trump in this whole Jeffrey Epstein thing, that he was, with some girl, and Jeffrey Epstein had emailed and said that, yes, he was with her. And this is actually not true, because Virginia came out in a deposition and said that Donald Trump never so much as flirted with her. Okay. And she actually, in her memoir before she died, she said that Donald Trump was very friendly and that she had never seen Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein together ever, despite Jeffrey Epstein saying that Donald Trump is a good buddy of his. Okay. So there's lots of bad information that has come out. Text messages, this was exposed recently between a Democrat delegate, Stacey Plaskett, and Jeffrey Epstein. They were texting back and forth. They appeared to have a relationship, but they were texting back and forth, and Jeffrey Epstein was encouraging her to ask questions in this congressional hearing where they were going after Donald Trump for the umpteenth time. And it looked like Jeffrey Epstein was trying to get President Donald Trump in this congressional hearing, or get, members of his administration, former members of his administration. Cohen, who was, testifying, and she was asking him questions, and she was being directed by Jeffrey Epstein onto what questions Michael Cohen was testifying. And it appeared that Jeffrey Epstein was directing her as to what questions to ask to try to trip up President Donald Trump and try to make him look bad. Okay. They were going after him. Former Harvard professor Larry Summers stepped away from public life Monday evening, just recently, after it was revealed that he was carrying a years-long friendship with the convicted pedophile, even after the late financier Jeffrey Epstein's proclivities had become public. Okay, so Larry Summers, this Harvard professor, former Harvard professor, it was connected. We know that he's, a friend of the Democrats. It's starting to look more it's starting to look more and more like President Donald Trump was hated by Jeffrey Epstein, and more of these documents that come out, and they're saying, oh, Trump is a pedophile. He's best friends with Jeffrey Epstein. The more documents that come out, it looks like it's the exact opposite. Okay, it looks like Democrats were all buddy-buddy with Jeffrey Epstein, and it looks like Jeffrey Epstein wanted to get President Donald Trump because he snitched him out to law enforcement. Okay, there was even some documents that were recently released in that dump of 20,000 documents where the details about the Mar-a-Lago club and President Donald Trump kicking Jeffrey Epstein out of the club and how that all kind of went down. Donald Trump, of course, came out as he was boarding Air Force One one time here recently. I think it was in July. Donald Trump was going on to Air Force One, and he was talking about how, I kicked him out because people kept coming to me saying that he was taking women from my spa, the Mar-a-Lago spa, and he kept poaching these women and hiring them for his own whatever. Okay. And people kept approaching Donald Trump, and Donald Trump told Jeffrey Epstein, don't do it again. And he said, okay. But then he did it again, and then he kicked him out of the club. Okay. Jeffrey Epstein, emails have been released saying that that's not true, that he was never a member of the club, and that Jeffrey Epstein actually kind of told on himself a little bit, that Donald Trump knew what was going on because he told Ghislaine Maxwell to stop what they were doing with the spa girls. Now, I don't know to stop what, whether that was to stop hiring them or to stop picking on them or poaching them or taking them away from Mar-a-Lago, or to stop, sex trafficking them. I don't know. Either way, President Donald Trump telling them to, hey, stop sex trafficking them. Hey, stop hiring my people away from Mar-a-Lago. Either way, that's a good thing, right? I don't know how you say Donald Trump is a pedophile when it appears that Jeffrey Epstein did not like President Donald Trump in multiple emails, show that Jeffrey Epstein was, upset with President Donald Trump, or that Donald Trump told them to stop, told Ghislaine to stop it with the spa girls and taking the spa girls, whatever that is, and President Donald Trump, he talked about this while boarding Air Force One, how that really all went down, him kicking him out of Mar-a-Lago. Anyway, Yeah, where was I? So the Democrats, they've been pushing the Trump is a pedophile thing. And they've been doing that for some time now. And the more and more documents that come out, the more and more we're starting to see that Jeffrey Epstein had a lot of Democrat friends and seemed to not like President Donald Trump at all. And we know, of course, the Democrat delegate who is a delegate of the U.S. Virgin Islands appeared to be texting Epstein during a 2019 congressional hearing, a congressional hearing that was designed to go after President Donald Trump for the umpteenth time. And Epstein was having Plaskett ask questions to implicate or to make Trump look bad. So anyway, this measure to release all these documents passed the House, like I said, with the one sole vote. And I'll get to why Clay Higgins voted no here in just a second, but it also went to the Senate the same day. The Senate approved it unanimously. Now, there was plenty of back and forth drama before the House vote, and I'll get to some of that drama right now. Over the weekend, Republicans said that they would vote for the measure. Okay, so over the weekend, it was whispered that they were going to bring this measure up and that a lot of Republicans were going to vote for it. So that is what I think prompted President Donald Trump to, because up to this point, he's kind of dismissed the Jeffrey Epstein files as silly and not a priority. But he wrote this on Truth Social over the weekend, and he said, it's time to move on from this Democrat hoax perpetuated by the radical left lunatics. Speaker Mike Johnson ended up voting for the measure as a way to show support for maximum transparency, but he expressed reservations about the bill and the bill's handling of sensitive information about victims, and urged the Senate to amend the legislation. Democrats, Johnson argued, were forcing a political show on the Epstein files. Really what this is, it's the Democrats trying to pacify their base because they screwed up the shutdown, and the base is really upset because they caved for the shutdown and they didn't get their extended ACA tax credits, okay? Making a big hubbub about this. Not that I don't want to see the Epstein files as well. I do. Let me be very clear. I want to see the Epstein files. I want people to go to jail. But here's the thing. I don't think that we're ever going to see what we're supposed to see. Because either that's, national security. I think that it goes so deep. And this is me in my tinfoil hat talking now. I think that this goes so deep that it's a matter of national security, and you would have banks closed overnight. You would have global economic collapse if the people who were implicated in this sex ring actually were brought to justice. And I think that the national intelligence communities will not let out some of these details due to national security, right? We'll have to see what comes out with this measure. But Republicans have long been asking if there's much more important information in the Epstein files, and why weren't they released when Biden was president? Okay, if there was more important information in the Epstein files that we need to know about, why wasn't that released during the Biden administration? Hopefully that comes out. Hopefully we get a good answer to that question. I don't think that we're even going to get it now. We'll have to see what happens. I don't think that the DOJ, the FBI has control of this anymore. I think that it's sealed by the national intelligence communities. And I've said this from the beginning. I think it's going to be on Tulsi Gabbard to be directed at the behest of President Donald Trump, or, this measure really doesn't do much because the DOJ has done all that the DOJ, I believe, can do at this time. Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi's rollout of this was botched. She didn't do a great job. She wasn't transparent. And here's what I think really happened was Pam Bondi was trying to look cool for President Donald Trump. She was trying to look cool. She is one of those, not my favorite member of the administration by any means at all. She, is been in politics for a long time, Florida politics. Was the Florida Attorney General for a long time, and she is one of these individuals who like the spotlight, the popularity. Okay. and she'll get on Fox News and talk, and who isn't really like that? Your Tom Homans, who's another one from the administration that I really like, RFK Jr. There's a lot of people out there who really want to do something good for the nation. I don't think that Pam Bondi wants to do anything good for the nation. I think she wants to do something good for her and to springboard herself into a media position after she serves as Attorney General here. Okay. I think that she's, a lot of people in this space, she's a hack, right? She just wants the clout. Okay. And I don't think that she really wants to do anything good for the nation. So here's where, she comes in with the Epstein file. She does a terrible rollout. And I think that it was all for show because she wanted to get her name out there and to get President Donald Trump to notice her. And she botched the release of it. But at this point, I don't think that the DOJ is the body to do this. I think that really it's going to be the intelligence communities forcing the court to unseal some of these things. Because, and I'll get to what the bill lays out, but really, and the courts are going to claim that they're sealing the victims' names, and that's why they can't release certain documents. And, the national intelligence communities are sealing names due to national security or whatever. And, I don't know if we're ever going to get those unsealed. And this doesn't direct them to unseal those. In fact, it does the opposite, this measure. So I'm asking the question, hey, if there was so much important information in these Epstein files, if there was important information that we can get our hands on, why wasn't that released during the Biden administration? That's a good question. Hopefully we get the answer to that question someday. But Thomas Massie, he is celebrating. He was a sponsor of the bill. He is celebrating the release of the Epstein files. There you go. That's the ex post. He and Representative Ro Khanna, released the Epstein files with their legislation that they had sponsored. Okay. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. Let's talk about the lone vote. Clay Higgins, why he voted no. Senate Republicans. So it was very quick, this vote took place. So no Senate Republicans blocked this vote. Blocked an attempt to force a vote on the resolution that would compel the release of these documents and files related to Jeffrey Epstein. So Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, he made good on his vow to force a vote on the resolution just hours after it passed through the House. So, Mike Johnson wanted it amended because he's worried about the victims' names being released. And the handling. Clay Higgins also voted no because of that reason. But Johnson expressed that he did vote yes for it, but he expressed that he's worried about the victims, right? So what Chuck Schumer did, he forced a vote on this just hours after it passed the House, and it was unanimous. No Republicans blocked this forcing of the vote by Chuck Schumer. Okay, so Schumer argued on the floor that the Senate should pass this bill as soon as possible, as written, without any hint of delay. And that's exactly what they did. So here is Schumer talking about it right here on the floor.
And I urge my Republican colleagues, let the Senate act today. And so I ask unanimous consent that when the Senate receives H.R. 4405, the Epstein Files Transparency Act from the House, the Senate proceed to its immediate consideration. The bill be considered, read 3 times, and passed with no intervening action or debate, and the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Is there an objection? Without objection, so ordered.
The Senate has now passed the Epstein bill as soon as it comes over from the House.
Okay. So Senator Chuck Schumer. Now, technically, the House vote wasn't unanimous, and I want to get to Clay Higgins here. He was the Republican from Louisiana. He was the lone holdout. And he said that I have been a principal no on this bill from the beginning. What's wrong with this bill is what is wrong with this bill 3 months ago. Okay, it's wrong with it. What was wrong with it 3 months ago is wrong with it, or is what's wrong with it today. That is what Clay Higgins said. It abandons 250 years of criminal justice procedure in America. And to be honest with you, I think he's sort of right. I want to see the Epstein files as much as everybody, folks. Okay, I really do. But they are going about this procedurally. This is why it is all, it's really a hoax. Donald Trump is right. This isn't even real because they're not even going about it the right way. So the bill reveals and injures thousands of innocent people. This is what Clay Higgins says. Witnesses, people who provided alibis, family members. If enacted in its current form, this broad reveal of criminal investigative files released to a rabid media will absolutely result in innocent people being hurt. Not by my vote. The Oversight Committee is conducting a thorough investigation and has already released well over 60,000 pages of documents from the Epstein case. That effort will continue in a manner that provides all due protections for innocent Americans. Yes, this is a deep criminal investigation, and there are going to be people named in these files who didn't do anything wrong, had alibis, family members of Jeffrey Epstein, family members of people involved, people who witnessed things. Those names are going to be released, and we have a rabid media, like Clay Higgins says, who's going to take this all out of context. And I agree with them there, in a sense. Not that we shouldn't get the documents. The Oversight Committee has been issuing, and we had a dump of 20,000 documents just recently, and we learned a lot about Mar-a-Lago. We learned a lot about Jeffrey Epstein and the emails, what he thought about President Donald Trump, and how President Donald Trump had told Ghislaine to, stop what she was doing at Mar-a-Lago, stop what they were doing at Mar-a-Lago. So he goes on, Clay Higgins, he says, if the Senate amends the bill to properly address privacy of victims and other Americans who are named but not criminally implicated, then I will vote for that bill when it comes back to the House. So Higgins, his misgivings here, despite his misgivings, the bill is headed to the president, and the president says that he is going to sign it. I think that they're going about this all wrong, because what the bill does, it directs the Department of Justice. I don't think that we're doing this right. I think that the intelligence community's national, the intelligence communities, Tulsi Gabbard, the CIA, they have to direct the courts to unseal some of these documents. And that's going to be dangerous because there are victims' names in those documents, which is why they're sealed. And I want to protect the victims, but I also want to know who Jeffrey Epstein trafficked the humans to, okay, and trafficked the people too, and sex trafficked these people too. We deserve to know that as the American people. So I don't know what's so complicated about unsealing these court documents and redacting victims' names, but that has to be done at the behest of the CIA and some of these intelligence communities to get the courts to do that. And even then, I think that the intelligence communities are going to have some hurdles in doing that because there's separation of powers, right? Anyway, what happens next here with this bill? Like I said, I think they went about it all wrong. But per the text of the bill, the Attorney General is required to, within 30 days, make publicly available and searchable and downloadable in a searchable and downloadable format All unclassified records, documents, communications, and investigative materials in possession of the DOJ, including the Federal Bureau of Investigations and the United States Attorney's Office, pertaining to Epstein, subject to certain exceptions, and this was laid out in subsection C of the bill. There are exceptions. Okay, so you have to release all these documents and records and communications pertaining to the Jeffrey Epstein investigation from all of these various offices. Notice how the courts aren't mentioned. Okay, there are court-sealed documents, but the Attorney General may withhold or redact portions of the records that contain personally identifiable information of victims or victims' personal and medical files. In similar files, the disclosure of which would constitute a clearly unwarranted invasion of personal privacy, protecting the victim. So Pam Bondi does not have to release any kind of documents, which I don't think that there are any left with the DOJ and FBI. I really don't. I think that we're talking about these court-sealed documents that nobody has their hands on, and I don't think anybody can really get their hands on it unless they're unsealed by the intelligence communities. But B, depict child sex abuse material. So victim information, child sex abuse material. Okay. You can't release that stuff. C, would jeopardize an active investigation, federal investigation, or ongoing prosecution, provided that such withholding is narrowly tailored and temporary. So anything that's going to jeopardize the an active federal investigation or an ongoing prosecution. But you've got to, keep this temporary and narrowly tailored. Like, you can't just use this to not release what you've got. Okay, Pam, you've got to actually release it. Don't use, subsection CC. This is where I'm at right now, A, B, C. The exceptions of the release and what those exceptions are. Don't use this. That's what the bill says. Don't use this to your advantage and not releasing the records. D, depict or contain images of death, physical abuse, or injury of any person. Or E, contain information specifically authorized under criteria established by an executive order to be kept secret in the interests of national defense or foreign policy. Here's where it is. Or are in fact properly classified pursuant to such executive order. Okay, that is where I think Section E, there are documents that are sealed, and I think they were sealed by the intelligence communities, and the courts sealed them at the direction of the intelligence agencies, and I believe the intelligence agencies can come back and unseal them. I'm not for certain on that, but I think we've all been chasing our tails on this one. If we want truly the Epstein files, we have got to go after the files that are, kept secret in the interest of national defense. And those are going to be the big names, the people that Jeffrey Epstein trafficked the women to, prime ministers, banking CEOs. Okay, that's the kind of people I want. And I am sure at the direction of executive order, which I'm not privy to Donald Trump issuing any kind of executive order. So this must have happened under, Biden. I don't know. But what the heck is E here, right? What is being kept secret out of the concern of national defense and foreign policy? Okay. That is, and it's explicitly the bill that they just passed, okay, unanimously, pretty much for the most part, explicitly directs the DOJ and Pam Bondi to not release that stuff. And that is the stuff that I think we all want. We want the big names. We want the prime ministers. We want the banking CEOs. We want the people who are on Epstein's island. I bet all those documents are sealed and kept secret. And like I said, if I was the president, I think it would cause global economic collapse if you release that. It might be out of national defense or security or foreign policy interest to keep that sealed. You're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you do release it, then you've got, banking CEOs being drug out in cuffs. Of course, that's going to bring down, trust in the banking system. There's going to be a run on the banks, and how many people would die in something like a Great Depression, but 10 times worse, because this involves multiple countries. So a global economic collapse is what we're looking at here, potentially, if we were to truly release what is being kept secret. Yeah. Yay, it's Christmas. They're releasing files that we probably is not going to be what we truly want. And they've gone about it the wrong way. If you truly wanted to get to the juicy part of this, the Democrats know this. That's why they've got this measure here. It was co-sponsored by Thomas Massie, and then you have Ro Khanna, who I believe, he's the Democrat who sponsored it with Thomas Massie. So yeah, he's the Democrat from California. Like, people know, they know how to get around. This bill is not truly going to get what we want out of the Epstein files. Anyway, yay, a Christmas gift. Not really. It's kind of like, what's a crappy Christmas gift? Like a pair of socks in your stocking. Right? It's not the Xbox 360 that I was hoping for. But yay, I get some socks, that is this measure. It's like opening up a pair of socks on your birthday, rather than an Xbox 360. Hooray. All right. Let's get to this. President Joe Biden. He is to blame. President Joe Biden is to blame for the thousands of illegal truckers on the roads with commercial driver's licenses. And these commercial driver's licenses should have never been issued. I've reported extensively on this. Now I want to give you Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy. I'm going to play a clip. He was on with, I think, Laura Ingraham. Yeah, the Ingraham angle. And he estimated that 17,000 CDLs, commercial driver's licenses, were handed out in California alone. Okay. So the U.S. Court of Appeals last week for the District of Columbia put a pause on Duffy's efforts to crack down on this practice of issuing CDLs. This is a federal rule that he established. It was an emergency rule. Said, hey, stop issuing CDLs to truckers who don't understand English, can't read basic road signs. Essentially, that's what the rule said, okay? Duffy is fighting back on that U.S. Court of Appeals decision because the court did not rule in favor of the federal rule that Secretary Transportation Sean Duffy established. So Duffy blasted the court ruling this week, the court ruling denies the Trump administration's request to keep illegal aliens from getting commercial driver's licenses. But Duffy said on the Ingraham angle, we are not taking this lying down. We are going to protect the American people. And this is what he had to say on the show. Take a listen.
Joe Biden let in, 10, 15 million illegals into the country, gave them work permits, work authorization, and these folks went out and they got commercial driver's licenses. And they're on the road. You just showed a lot of the footage. People are dying. And we thought it was appropriate to protect Americans that we should have an emergency rule, not to go through the month-long process. We did that. The court has rolled us back and said, well, we're not quite sure this is an emergency. We want to see more data. And I'm like, watch the Ingram angle. Watch any show on television, and you see the risk to the American people. And so, again, we're working on the legal strategy right now, but we are not going to take this lying down. We are going to do all we can to protect the American people. Joe Biden let.
Okay, that's Sean Duffy. And the judge's reasoning was very interesting. The court found that the federal government did not properly or go about a proper procedure when creating this new rule, this federal rule that prohibits states from issuing CDLs to illegals. And they said that the court said that it wasn't done properly, the procedure. They noted that the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration data shows that about 5% of all commercial driver's licenses belong to immigrants, though they account for about 0.2% of fatal crashes. So they noted that in their ruling as well, like statistics. So yes, but they're here illegally. Thus, they shouldn't be given driver's licenses. I don't really give a damn about the procedure or about the data. I really care about the law. They're here illegally. They shouldn't be given driver's licenses, and they shouldn't be given driver's licenses that allow them to drive massive trucks. Okay. So in October, Duffy said that there were close to 200,000 licenses given out to illegals. There were 200,000 non-domicile CDLs issued to foreigners, and I think 194,000 of those were issued illegally and would not comply with our new rule, the federal rule. That is what Duffy said in October. It was a September rule. They issued the rule in September. On Monday, he placed blame squarely on Joe Biden. Joe Biden let 10 to 15 million illegals into our country. We are going to protect the American people. That is what Sean Duffy said with Laura Ingram. I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to wrap this story up. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat Clips, where we dig up the truth and we serve it all with a snarl. I'm your host, Cat, and today we are turning our claws on the man who ran Illinois like it was his personal little kingdom for nearly half a century. That's Michael J. Madigan, the Velvet Hammer. Soft-spoken on camera, but was a heavy-fisted, hard-fisted guy when it came to the backroom deals. He was slippery as an eel when the feds came knocking on his door. So let's get into the history. Michael Madigan was elected to the Illinois House way back in 1971 and became a speaker in 1983, holding that position for a very, very long time, longer than most marriages. Okay. Most marriages don't last as long as he was speaker. He was the longest ever serving legislative speaker in American history, by the way. So he also chaired the Illinois Democratic Party, making him the most powerful political operator probably in the country. And folks, this wasn't because he was loved. It was because he was feared. Michael Madigan, his power came from three key tools. Let's get into them. Total control over the legislative maps through gerrymandering. Okay. Then he also had a tight grip on campaigns funds. If you wanted to win as a Democrat, you needed Madigan's money. He also had a personal side hustle. It was a law firm called Madigan and Getzendanner. And this was actually a law firm in property tax appeals, often the very business affected by his legislation he passed. So this is very interesting. So he kept his control using these three key tools. Now, a turning point in July of 2020, federal prosecutors dropped a political nuke on this guy. ComEd, Illinois' largest electricity provider or electric utility, pretty much admitted to a nearly decade-long bribery scheme to curry favor with Michael Madigan. Okay, so in 2011 to 2019, from ComEd, what they did, they handed out jobs, internships, contracts, and payments to Michael Madigan's political cronies in exchange for favorable legislation. Okay, that's what ComEd did. Now, legislation like rate hikes, regulatory breaks, all of that, favorable legislation for ComEd, they were essentially bribed. ComEd paid over $1.3 million in bribes, helping Madigan solidify his empire, while electricity bills went up for working families. Okay, so by March of 2022, the hammer dropped. Okay, so Madigan was indicted on 22 counts, including racketeering, bribery, wire fraud, and extortion. Prosecutors described it's a criminal enterprise where legislation was for sale and loyalty was purchased with jobs and perks. Okay, so his top lieutenant, Michael McLean, was already charged and is now facing trial alongside him. Even ComEd CEO at the time was indicted. It was a full-blown political mob trial, and Madigan was at the tippity top of the pyramid. Okay, so let's talk consequences. Well, Madigan's political machine made millions. Illinois sank. We became the highest tax state in the Midwest. We racked up $130 billion, over $130 billion. I think it's more like 143 in unfunded pension liability, and it's continuing to climb. Chicago lost residents, businesses, credibility. And who helped prop it all up? Look no further than Governor J.B. Pritzker, who signed off on Madigan's budgets and stayed silent for years, even when the corruption smoke turned into a federal fire. Okay, so to be blunt, Michael Madigan, he didn't just run Illinois, he ran it into the ground. And I just want to be clear, Governor J.B. Pritzker is not blameless in this. He signed off on Madigan's budgets. This is Kat, and you've been listening to Conservative Cat Clips. Remember this, Michael Madigan may finally face justice in court. He might finally get a sentencing. Who knows? But the machine he's built still grinds on, greased with taxpayer money, corrupt contracts, and weak-willed politicians. It's time we stop treating corruption like a tradition here in the state of Illinois, and we start treating it like the felony it is. Because if we don't, Illinois will be run by the same snakes, just different suits. This has been Conservative Cat Clips. Hey, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. I so do appreciate you being here. Subscribe, Boiling Point Live. Go subscribe to them. Follow them on Rumble. The Epstein bill will be blocked by judges involved because of the inadequacies of the protections. Dems know that. Yeah, there's a lot of protections laid out in it, but it'll be blocked because they don't go far enough in protecting the victims and the victims' names and keeping those concealed in the bill. But more so, it's like what we truly want, which is what's been sealed by the intelligence communities due to national security reasons. That is what we want. And people don't understand that that's what we want. And we're never going to get it. Okay. Unless it's not the DOJ, it's the CIA, it's the it'd be Tulsi Gabbard, Director of Intelligence. Okay, so before we took the break, I was telling you a little bit about the commercial driver's licenses here. Joe Biden, he gave him work permits. This is all at the feet of Joe Biden. Gave him work permits, gave him work authorization, and these folks went out and they got commercial driver's licenses. So he went on to blast these judges, Sean Duffy, for their seemingly arbitrary decision. And he said that people are dying. He said that, hey, we think it's appropriate to protect Americans on the roads. We should have an emergency rule and not go through a months-long process because the court ruling here, Sean Duffy blasted the court ruling. The court ruling made a hubbub about the procedure, that it wasn't an emergency enough, or that we didn't have enough data. The court said, oh, there's not enough data to suggest that the illegal immigrants are killing people in large amounts that would warrant an emergency rule, which is stupid, gay. Okay, and they said, well, we're not quite sure this is an emergency. The court, we want to see more data. And I'm like, dude, watch the TV. Okay, look at what's going on our roads. Look at go look at the media reports of crashes, pileups on all of our highways, American interstates and highways. Okay, so you can see the risk to the American people with your eyeballs if you were to be looking. Okay, so imagine you're like in this rainstorm. We had some rain here in Illinois, and I was actually driving next to an 18-wheeler, and I kept looking over, and I was like, does that guy know how to read the road signs? Does he know how to read the hazard road signs? I couldn't help but think that about the guy in the 18-wheeler next to me. And Governor Gavin Newsom, Governor J.B. Pritzker, Joe Biden, and all these others have brought this dangerous reality. They've brought this into reality, this danger, and people have died because of it. Look at what happened in Florida, California, Illinois. There's been crashes in Illinois, and Duffy is trying to fix it, and he's going to do it no matter how many courts try to stand in his way. All right, one more story, and I'm kind of excited about this one. I'm not a fan of Nicki Minaj. I'm not a fan of rap, so this was kind of shocking that Nicki Minaj came out and talked about the power of faith. So there is going to be a great revival. I truly believe that. Before I believe we're living in the end times. My pastor's prophet at the Tabernacle Church, and he's been saying it for years that we are living in the end times, and before the rapture of the church, that there's going to be this great revival. And Nicki Minaj, last person I would have guessed to have such an amazing faith. So she talked about the power of faith and uniting humanity in a very moving speech at the United Nations over the killing of Christians in Nigeria. So the 42-year-old rapper, her real name is not Nicki Minaj. It's Onika Kenya Maraj Petty. She joined the U.S. ambassador to the UN, Mike Walls, in New York to speak about the genocide that's going on in Nigeria, where thousands of Christians are being persecuted and slaughtered. So I'm going to share this with you. This is her very moving speech. Take a listen. Here we go.
Thank you, Ambassador Waltz, for this invitation. It is an honor to stand on this stage with you and the other distinguished speakers here today to shine a spotlight on the deadly threat faced by thousands of Christians in Nigeria. I would like to thank President Trump for prioritizing this issue and for his leadership on the global stage in calling for urgent action to defend Christians in Nigeria, to combat extremism, and to bring a stop to violence against those who simply want to exercise their natural right to freedom of religion or belief. I stand here as a proud New Yorker with a deep sense of gratitude that we live in a country where we can freely and safely worship God regardless of one's creed, background, or politics. No group should ever be persecuted for practicing their religion, like I recently stated on social media. And we don't have to share the same beliefs in order for us to respect each other. We're way beyond thinking or expecting or assuming for, the person sitting next to you to have the exact same beliefs. We're beyond that. That's ridiculous. But that shouldn't make one person feel less safe than anyone in any room. Music has taken me around the globe. I have seen how people, no matter their language, culture, or religion, come alive when they hear a song that touches their soul. Religious freedom means we all can sing our faith regardless of who we are. where we live, and what we believe. But today, faith is under attack in way too many places. In Nigeria, Christians are being targeted, driven from their homes, and killed. Churches have been burned. Families have been torn apart, and entire communities live in fear constantly, simply because of how they pray. Sadly, this problem is not only a growing problem in Nigeria, but also in so many other countries across the world, and it demands urgent action. And I want to be clear. Protecting Christians in Nigeria is not about taking sides or dividing people. It is about uniting humanity.
Okay, so that's Nicki Minaj. Very motivating speech, very heart-wrenching speech. She did a good job. So I wanted to talk about President Donald Trump and what he had put out to kind of begin Nicki Minaj's position here. So President Donald Trump wrote in a post, he said, if the Nigerian government, and I'll throw it up here for you guys to see. He put in a Truth Social post, if the Nigerian government continues to allow the killing of Christians, the USA will immediately stop all aid and assistance to Nigeria and may very well go into that now disgraced country, guns a-blazing, to completely wipe out the Islamic terrorists who are committing these horrible atrocities. I am hereby instructing the Department of War to prepare for possible action. If we attack, it'll be fast, vicious, and sweet. Just like the terrorist thugs attacked our cherished Christians. Warning, the Nigerian government better move fast. So, as you can expect, after that, the really world-renowned rapper, Nicki Minaj, she's very popular, thanked President Donald Trump for speaking on this. And she immediately faced backlash, when she had posted, this was her post actually, talking about how no group should ever be persecuted for practicing their religion. That's what she says here in Truth, or on X, on her X account. And, she's a devout Christian follower. And she took to her X account and thanked President Donald Trump for speaking up and standing up and pledging to stop the persecution on Christians. So she wrote that on X. She said, reading this made me feel a deep sense of gratitude. We live in a country where we can worship freely. No group should ever be persecuted for practicing their religion. We don't have to share the same beliefs in order for us to respect each other. Numerous countries around the world are being affected by this horror, and it's dangerous to pretend that we don't notice. Thank you, President and his team, for taking this seriously. God bless every persecuted Christian. Let's remember to lift them up in prayer. And really, as Minaj said, every person has the right to worship without fear. I can say that I don't, subscribe to the Islamic faith. I don't subscribe to Hinduism. But I'm not going to go out there and hurt people because they've chosen a wrong doctrine to follow or a wrong religion to follow. So thank you, President Trump, to echo what Nicki Minaj said. Thank you for leading the way once again on this. And we should pray for the persecuted Christians. We should pray for their families, those who have tragically lost their lives in Nigeria. Pray for their families and lift them up in prayer. Appreciate you guys being here. I'll be back tomorrow morning. Bye-bye. Love you. Smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. Catch you later.